Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series, A Senior's Guide to Building a Modular ADU. This is part 3 of 10, titled Your Local Jurisdiction, specifically handling the red tape. This is brought to you by Mr. John Aronson, President and owner of Crest Backyard Homes, and myself, Jeremy Knock, President and owner of Golden Age Financial Solutions. So remember, this series is designed to take you from initial idea of the ADU all the way through the certificate of occupancy, using the HECM loan to maximize your cash flow. We're bringing this live to you every Tuesday and Saturday from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Remember, the sessions are recorded and they're available to share after, so make sure you do share those links. Now, we will be doing a 20-minute session, and then at the end, we're doing the live Q&A portion. So if you do have a question, please hit that little question button, type it out, but we will be answering all the questions at the end. So today, like I said, we are going to be exploring your local jurisdiction, as well as how the state laws have and will be affecting them now and in the very near future. That being said, John, could you give us an overview for navigating the local jurisdictions and the benefits of hiring the professionals like you to handle it for them?
I sure can, Jeremy, and good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. The very first thing I recommend anyone do is research their local building jurisdictions ordinance. Now, there's 19 individual building jurisdictions in San Diego County, plus all the unincorporated communities. And each jurisdiction has their own ordinance. I believe every jurisdiction has an online link to it as well. So do yourself a favor and log onto and study that ordinance and try to stay current on it. Your contractor with all these jurisdictions, and they're working throughout the county, isn't going to always stay completely on top of your own ordinance. I do, before I start a project, I always go back and research that ordinance just to make sure there's no changes. But believe me, as I've said many times, they do change, and sometimes as often as you change the sheets on your bed. As the state continues to add, amend, and expand the ADU guidelines, so too must each jurisdiction. So far, this has been a revolving door, as the state has either amended or added new laws every year since the first laws were enacted in January 2017. Then you'll need a copy of your topographical map. It's also known as a topo. I'm going to be using a lot of acronyms, and you're going to have to get used to those because you're going to be hearing them as well as you go through the process with your own contractor or yourself. We'll discuss this in more detail in a few moments, but however, best and most dependable way to protect yourself against any potential encroachments or issues is to obtain a survey of your property. And I can't stress this more. The survey will verify your exact property dimensions by placing what they call monuments at all the corners of your lot. They'll also place stakes intermittently around the entire perimeter of the lot, delineating exactly where your property line is. Nothing can be worse than assuming your fence is your property line. What if that fence is 6 inches on your neighbor's property? That could be a very bad situation for you if you decide to build that ADU based on that fence. I've seen this happen.
I agree. And there's just so many moving parts to this process. And, rule changes seem to just perpetually be on the horizon. So people are always kind of playing catch up. So what are some of the critical things to be aware of as you start down the path of building your ADU?
Well, as I stated earlier, it'll serve you well to know and understand the state ADU laws. Since the first ADU laws were enacted in January of 2017, there have been amendments to those laws, as well as subsequent new ones every year, including the 5 enacted just this past January. Regardless, I highly recommend you stay on top of your ordinance. In fact, I had a pretty unusual experience myself, and I was really kind of bent this past year, 2019. Our team designed a 480 square foot 2-story garage apartment based on the county ordinance that was in effect prior to March 27th of 2019. When I visited the county permit counter to pull a permit on another property in January of 2019, I asked if there were going to be any amendments. I just had a feeling I should ask, and I was glad I did. I was surprised to find out that the following March 27th, 2 months away, they would be allowing up to 4-car, 1,200 square foot garage apartments. This was disturbing, to say the least. It already cost me a few $1,000s to design the 2-car garage apartment, but it did teach me a valuable lesson very early on. Stay on top of your local ordinances continually before you pull your permit. The one guarantee you can count on is that they are guaranteed to change, and often in some cases. The same thing holds true for all your city jurisdictions. Believe me, this is going to be an ever-changing landscape. Now, if you're in the coastal zone, you'll be required to obtain approval from the California Coastal Commission, again, another acronym, the CCC. Several cities in the county, including the county itself, fall within the CCC's sphere of influence, or as we commonly refer to it, perhaps better put, fear of influence. They all have local coastal programs, also known as LCPs, that are exclusive to that particular jurisdiction. It's extremely important to know and understand what that LCP is and how it may impact your ADU plans.
Well, the good news is with all these entities involved is that no matter what, the state law trumps all your local ordinances. Now, keep in mind, some local jurisdictions have adopted these changes quickly and some not so much. Eventually, they'll all have to comply with the state laws. We found that are many actually happy to work with folks to get these ADUs built fast because it's helping to solve the housing crisis. In fact, it's common for ADU permits to take precedence over other permit applications now. So, John, can you cover some of the local ordinances you'll encounter during the ADU project?
I sure can. And now, once again, your local jurisdiction's ADU ordinance must comply with minimum state requirements, as Jeremy just implied. But the building and planning department will be the place you will be starting, and you'll be dealing with them throughout the entire process. This begins with the permit process up to and including your final inspection and the issuance of that coveted certificate of occupancy, also known as the CO. That's when you get your keys, you can move in and start, you can turn that stove on. And before being issued a permit, you'll be directed to building, planning, engineering, and possibly other stations during the permit process. Engineering addresses soil preparation, compaction issues, along with others. Then there's the environmental, where you'll be dealing with sewer and septic and any other environmental issues. If the project's in a floodplain, drainage, soil erosion, and soil retention will need to be addressed. And this is critical in the county of San Diego right now for a lot of reasons. But do know whether or not you're in a floodplain. It could totally change your whole equation for your ADU. If the fire department approval is needed, you're going to be dealing with your local fire department directly. And likewise, school fees will have to be handled through the local school district directly.
So, John, there's obviously a lot of homework involved, but I know if you do it like Crest does, you'll have a great understanding of where you can and where you can't build your new modular ADU. So let's show the folks at home what all this really looks like on paper by examining that topo more in detail.
All right, the topo is a detailed map of your parcel. It delineates your boundaries, your property lines, your setbacks, public and private easements, utility easements, the location of your existing main utility feeds, and the contour lines or gradients, which consist of many variations such as inclines, hills, banks, little streams, rivers, ponds, whatever may be worthy of note on that topo. But most importantly, the topo will let you know, based on the location you wish to place your backyard home, just how large it can be and where it's most suitable to be located. It's also very important to note where any and all existing structures are, like sheds, a pool, attached or detached garage, etc., are located.
So the first thing we're actually doing is outlining where these existing structures are. I just mapped out the boundaries where you can see here. Then we're going to show you some special stuff on here where the environmental concerns are, and these are sage lines, so you have to follow those sage setbacks. And there's actually two sets of those. So when it comes to the environmental setbacks, it's really, really critical to pay attention to those because the Coastal Commission has so much power and authority to make you do stuff. So based on the homework that was done previously, what we found is that right here is actually the best location on this plot to drop an ADU. The reason being is because this is going to be the owner's primary residence, and this ADU, based on our discovery process, this is going to be used specifically for rental income. Now, let's look at driveway access. And John, as we're walking through this driveway access, can you just kind of talk about why this location was selected?
Well, basically, it's the flattest overall grade on the lot. If you look at the gradient lines or the contour lines, you'll see that there's a wide distance between them, which gives you more usable space, flat usable space, so you don't have to worry about a lot of grading, excavation, retainer walls, etc. And another thing I should mention too is that you can basically place it so that it's below the roof line and sits below the window line of the main house, so that the main house views aren't blocked essentially.
So that's important because the main house is going to be looking out this way and this way and this way, and none of their views are going to be obstructed. And part of the planning process, the orientation of this ADU is actually going to sit this way. So you've got the drive up and parking and a main house here, but down here is where they're going to look at putting the hardscape. Also, this is where we're thinking about adding fences. And we're going to use these gradients to our advantage to keep this house below. And then that way you don't have to build a really, really tall fence. You can actually build a very short fence that looks very pleasant and keeps the space of the main property very open. When you're considering spaces like hardscape, if you look here, you can also see there's not a lot of gradient here. So there's not a lot of grading to be done, which means you can place a really nice outdoor kitchen here, the patio umbrella, the table. Excuse my drawing, it's not that great, but you guys get the general idea. And the last thing we want to do with this is outline some of the places that were also potential locations. And as I'm drawing these, John's going to walk through why they were not selected. So initially, right here, they were considering this. Now, if you pay attention to this line between the property line and this line, this is an 8.5-foot setback that does have to be complied with unless you go with the state guidelines, which is 4 feet, because there's no existing structure here to change that, which means you don't have a ton of wiggle room here. Keep in mind, you've also got these sage lines right here, which are very, very important to go back to. Now, John, can you talk to us a little bit about the gradient stuff and why this location specifically was not chosen?
Yeah, well, if you look at the gradients, it kind of speaks for itself. It has a steep incline, and you can tell that because of how close the contour lines or gradients really are together on the map. But now you can overcome. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to kind of show the folks at home how steep these things are and how close together he's referring to.
Yep.
And the angle of the hill is this. It's moving up.
That's correct. That's correct. You can overcome that by doing a cantilever design if you want to. That's a pretty popular method. You basically use caissons or columns to support the structure up off the ground, and you'll have a flat surface at the entrance of your property or your ADU, and then it'll get steeper and cantilever out as you progress towards the other end of it, and you'll have a beautiful view. I mean, that'll really enhance your view. Or the other choice is to excavate a pad by cutting, filling, and adding costly retainer walls and drainage, which may negatively and no doubt will impact your view.
And I know all that's extremely expensive and time consuming. And since this was all about cash flow for them, they went with this alternate location right here. But wow, what a view they would have. So let's look at this last possible location, which was right here. And John, can you talk to us a little bit about why this location was not selected?
Well, I believe that there were some, although I'm not seeing them on your map, I thought there might be some environmental issues to deal with on that one. But they are less than aggressive and steep gradients, I'll say that. Yeah, so we really have to use caution during the location planning process. And don't forget, you also have to factor in the driveway and parking. That's important.
Yeah, and I know that. So right here, these blue lines are the sage lines, and so we couldn't get the driveway the way they wanted it and the parking they wanted it through here with enough space to really get a car through there and make everybody happy and still get the parking the way they wanted it. You see how close we came there to that? And then on top of that, it would have just cost so much extra money to get this property below the window line on this one. It just made it very cost prohibitive for them to do that. And so that's why you really have to keep the end user in mind. If it's going to be for a renter, then the chosen location of this one right here in green made the most sense. Now, if it's going to be for you to move in and rent this property out, maybe you really don't care if that view's blocked a little bit because you want it right here and you want to have this beautiful overlooking view. So you just got to keep that in mind. If it's going to be for you eventually, maybe paying a little extra to have that view of a lifetime for a lifetime could be worth it. And I know each of these locations does have its own benefits. It's got its own challenges and limitations on the design. And after carefully reviewing all the client's wants and needs, the final location and orientation accomplished everything they wanted to. So John, with all this in mind, can you give us the overview on how to finally determine the size of the ADU?
Yeah, well, let's just start by saying that the local jurisdiction may increase state standards, but they must comply with minimum state standards. And this will basically enable you to determine the best possible location where you can place your ADUs, we pointed out earlier. But again, and even more importantly, it'll let you know by just how small or how large your backyard home can be.
Got it. So as we discussed in previous slides, there's all these other factors to consider with the end user in mind as the key decision maker. And if you've picked out the exact spot you want it, you may have to be willing to compromise on the footprint or the orientation to get it in that exact location. So that being said, why don't you walk us through how to calculate the estimated size of the footprint?
Well, the total lot size minus the setbacks, easements, encroachments, and what they call floor area ratio, and another acronym, FAR, will determine your net usable space. You'll need to find out what your FAR is from your local jurisdiction, as it can vary from one to another. Let's use an example, and what I hope is more layperson friendly. We'll take a 4,000 square foot lot. And let's start with a 1,000 square foot home, a 400 square foot garage, and a 200 square foot shed for a total of 1,600 square feet of structure and a FAR, or a floor area ratio, of 75%. This means you can utilize up to 3,000 square feet of the 4,000 square foot lot for structures. Now, if you subtract 1,600 square feet of existing fixtures and structures, that leaves you with 1,400 square feet of net usable space. This would allow you to add up to a 1,200 square foot ADU on your property.
Well, these are all obviously very precise measurements, and the city is totally unforgiving if your placement is wrong because of inaccurate starting points on setback locations. Now, John, I know a survey isn't required, but would you please reiterate to the folks at home what exactly the survey includes and then how it can help make sure there are never any errors when getting those determinations?
Well, no, they are not necessarily required. However, a survey, it's going to serve you well and save you a huge headache at the end of the day. Again, as we mentioned earlier, it establishes clearly and all your exact boundary lines, setbacks, any obstacles on the property that you may have to contend with, any underground easements. There's just a lot of things that survey will help you with. And believe me, it's worth every. They can be expensive, but it's worth it in the long run.
Well, don't forget, folks, you've also got to include those environmental areas, which, if ignored, will ruin your whole project. And if you think the city's unforgiving, just try the environmental folks or the Coastal Commission. Now, let's switch gears and look at some financing, shall we? So when it comes to planning the HECM loan, you're going to want to start immediately at the idea stage of building an ADU. And the reason why is twofold. First off, the loan will take approximately 25 to 30 days to complete. And you don't want to add delays in the project once you start because you're waiting for money. Secondly, it's based on the value of your current primary residence. There are several steps we need to take in the process before we get to the appraisal, yet the appraisal will give us the final determination on how much money you qualify for. We do a really good job of our estimations, but if you have a tight budget, you'll want to know exactly how much you can access in your loan before you fully commit to the final design of the ADU. With all the jurisdictional factors that can determine the size and location, the budget will also play one of the biggest factors in determining the exact size and location as well. Once you know how much you qualify for, then we go through the planning and strategy phase of the HECM loan. We'll do a complete financial analysis so that by the time we get to the end, you know exactly how to use the HECM loan to build the ADU and have a solid plan in place for the remaining HECM line of credit. And remember, the unused portion is what grows over time, so we'll go over those details. I have specific software planning tools so we can look at where it makes sense to start drawing on the funds and what happens to the remaining line when you do. We can also map out a few big ticket purchases for the future, like building an additional ADU or even two, or maybe using the money to buy an RV or maybe another property altogether.
Well, Jeremy, I can see that you take a lot of extra time to plan successful strategies that most other loan officers don't even know exist, let alone how to use them. Well, why don't you tell the folks a little bit more about your background and maybe just give us a brief overview on the key details of the HECM loan?
Of course. So I've been in the mortgage business for about 20 years. I started doing all the traditional forward loans like conventional, FHA, VA, and the Alt-A stuff. I found the HECM loan product about 8 years ago, and I just fell in love with it instantly. I love the client interaction. I love who the client is, the financial peace of mind it gave to everyone during their golden years. What drew me to it is I dove into the research of who my client was, and frankly, the details scared me. Did you know that over 70% of seniors need some sort of financial assistance every month just to get by? Or those seniors who are looking to retire, 1 out of 3 of them are still making a mortgage payment. And that mortgage payment is specifically why they can't retire right now. The baby boomers and their parents are the ones who shaped America for us. And now most of them are sitting on their couch because they don't have the money to enjoy their life. I mean, think about it. We all got told the American dream is the house with the white picket fence, 2.5 kids and a dog. But the real American dream, John, that's retirement. It's finally having the time to do what you want. But without the cash flow to do it, you're sitting at home on the couch. And I could go on, but the bottom line is this. I made it my personal mission to change this and help seniors really live the American dream. After all, they're the ones who worked their whole lives for it, so now it's time they have it. This marriage of the HECM loan and the ADU together is the solution to finally being able to realize it. So what do they need to know? First and foremost, the loan has to be done on your primary residence. Next, the appraisal amount is based on your current value. You have to be 62 or older to qualify, however, your spouse can be younger. And the funds can be used absolutely anywhere. You can build on your primary residence, you can build on your rental property, or a combination of things. And there's no payment required, ever. Not before, not during, not after construction, ever in these loans. So in closing, if you have specific questions regarding the ADU, please reach out to Crest Backyard Homes. Their website is crestbackyardhomes.com. Go to their site, find their contact page, and fill it out. One of the representatives will be in contact with you shortly. If you have specific question loans for the HECM loan, reach out to Golden Age Financial Solutions. Their website is goldenaf.com. That's golden A as in apple, F as in frank.com. Go to their site, find their contact page, and fill it out. One of their representatives will be with you shortly. Keep in mind, all these sessions are recorded, so you can watch them over and over again and share them with friends and family. Make sure to join us for the next webinar on Saturday. Look for that link. Don't forget to register, and don't forget to share it with your friends. Now, I'd like to open it up for the question and answer portion. Let's see what we've got here. So we've got several questions. So first one, we own a property in the North Park area of San Diego. It is a single family home with an unpermitted granny flat that is a separate structure. What would be involved in obtaining a permit for a structure that already exists? John, that one's for you.
Well, we do a lot of that. Basically, you just go to the building jurisdiction, you apply for what they call an as-built permit. Generally, you're going to do your jurisdictional or city inspector or county inspector will come out and do a preliminary or pre-site inspection to basically list all they're not citations, so don't take it that way, but they list the corrections that have to be made in order to bring that non-conforming or unpermitted ADU or JADU up to code. Most often, though, do note, they occur in the garages. I mean, I've seen so many garage conversions where they still have the garage door over, basically so people don't know that they actually have an ADU in there.
Got it. This one, actually, two questions, exact same question from two different folks. What is a sage line?
Do you want me to field that one?
Yes, please.
Well, a sage line basically is an environmental setback. There's a lot of environmental protection issues that have to be addressed and dealt with. They could be animals, they could be, in this particular instance, sage. And it's just an area or an easement that has to be observed. You can't build on it, you can't develop it. It's got to be observed and protected.
Got it. So this one looks like for me, please review a bit about HECM Loan. Is it a loan just for ADUs over 62 years old, etc.? So first and foremost, yes, this is a loan for folks that are 62 or older. However, this loan is not just for ADUs. So I've done these loans for folks that have current traditional forward mortgages where they're making a mortgage payment. What we do is we will refinance them out of their traditional loan that requires a payment into a HECM loan where they no longer have to make a mortgage payment. And in fact, several of those clients have been able to literally go in and put in for retirement the day after we fund the loan, because all of a sudden they don't have to make a mortgage payment anymore. Keep in mind, you can use the money anywhere. So we've had folks pay off their traditional mortgages, get access to these lines of credit, and then they start using these lines of credit to go start living out their retirement dreams. I've got clients that have bought RVs and they decided to go to every campground that they can find that will use an RV all the way up the whole entire coast of California. That's their goal, to do that before they are unable to anymore. It's really just such an incredible tool if you plan it correctly. Still got about 5 minutes left for questions. Here's one. What exactly, how much approximately is a survey? Just a ballpark. John, that one would be for you.
There's some dynamics involved. A lot of it, they can be thousands of dollars, to be perfectly honest. They're not cheap, but it varies according to the lot size and the location. You really want to use a surveyor that's familiar with your particular terrain. You don't want to go, try to find a surveyor that's up in Orange County or Riverside. You really want to find one that is acclimated and understands the dynamics of your particular parcel.
Yeah, we really can't stress enough how important it is to use local folks to do these kinds of things.
I'd say get a few estimates. I mean, there are some guys out there that'll, kind of gouge you if you're naive. So be wary of that. And just like anything else, you want to get multiple offers or multiple estimates on everything.
I agree completely.
That's a real estate broker in me, multiple offers. I like those.
Absolutely. All right, we got time for, it looks like, about one or two more questions. How long does a survey take to get completed?
Well, that's a pretty broad question. It depends. A lot of it depends on just how busy that surveyor is. That's a good question to ask a surveyor. Say, look, I'm on a time crunch here. I don't want this to take months. I want this to be done as quickly as possible. And if they say that they can't perform or that it's going to take several weeks and you don't want to take several weeks, then that's when you just say next.
And can you kind of just expound on that just a little bit? So if that is that just a timing thing where like hey, I've got a full schedule until 2 Saturdays from now, or is it when a survey actually comes out to your property and they finally give you the report, how long is it usually from them doing the physical inspection to them giving you the actual survey?
Well, again, this is something you want to ask the surveyor. If they're not that busy, they should be able to turn that around within a few days, to be perfectly honest. Some of them just take several weeks to get around to it. I don't know what it is. I think it gets frustrating at times. I got to admit that. I've worked with a lot of surveyors, and I've learned, just how important it is to go out to different surveyors. Don't just take one. I mean, get the opinion of several. Ask them right up front, or tell them, I need it done. I need it done quickly. How long is it going to take you? If it's going to take you more than a couple of weeks, I got to find somebody that's not that busy, essentially.
Got it. All right. Let's see here. We've got one more question. This one looks like for me. So what is the cost of the HECM loan? So you're going to have your typical third-party fees, title, escrow, all that. When you fund a loan, they do charge, and this is a HUD fee for part of the FHA insurance. It's a 2% fee that goes directly to HUD. It's based on the value of your property. So whatever the value of your property is, if your property is $500,000, 2% of that, you're going to have a $10,000 a fee that goes directly to HUD. So that doesn't go to like the broker or the lender or anything like that. It goes directly to HUD. Do we have any other questions? Looks like we got about 1 more minute. As far as how long the HECM loan takes to get completed, that can be an average of 25 to 30 days. Really what it comes down to is how motivated the client is to get it completed. The faster I get the paperwork back in my hands, the faster the loan goes. We've done them in as little as about 21 days, but average is 25 to 30. All right, that takes us right up to 10:30. So we are going to call this one a wrap. Please be on the lookout for the next link. Make sure if you happened to catch this one, share it with your friends, and we will see you guys on Saturday.
Thanks for joining us.